All right, this is our video about the Declaration of Independence. We started off the year reading an ancient work, Antigone. Then we moved into a late medieval period from Macbeth. So we read two stories, two plays. Also, they're considered poetry. And now we're moving into a different type of writing. And everything from here on out is going to be more what we call propositional writing. The word proposition means to put something forth that you're ready to defend. And so we'll see in the Declaration of Independence, the Gettysburg Address, Lincoln's second inaugural address, and then MLK's letter from Birmingham jail, a type of writing again known as propositional writing. And this is more of the type of writing you're going to be doing this semester. And one of the reasons I assigned these texts is they all have several things that tie them together. They all qualify as great works, works that are worth reading and knowing. And then they are also examples of high writing skill. And we can't get there now, but they set a good standard for us to reach to. So let me just touch on a few things on the Declaration of Independence. And I'll start with, first and foremost, let's talk a little bit about ethos, right? When we go all the way back to Antigone, we see examples of ethos when Haman approaches his father and when Tiresias approaches King Creon. So let's just talk about Tiresias for a second. When Tiresias approaches Creon, Tiresias establishes his ethos right away, his credibility, his trustworthiness. And he says, listen, any advice I've given you in the past, Creon, you've accepted it, and it has turned out to be profitable for you and for the city. And just as I've given you good advice in the past and you've taken it, the advice I'm giving you now, as much as you might not want to hear it, you need to accept it, because if you obey it, it will turn out good for you. And if not, of course, we've read Antigone and seen how poorly that turned out for Creon. Ethos has to do with someone's credibility, their trustworthiness, their skill, how qualified are they for this. So on that note, I want to first talk about the ethos of the writer of the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence was written by committee. One of the head members of the committee was John Adams, who would become the second president of the United States of America. Adams was a staunch abolitionist. He was opposed to slavery. He never owned slaves, and he was a man known to have taken several other risks against the tide of that time. If I'm not mistaken, he would be the lawyer who would defend the British soldiers who fired on the colonists just a while before the Revolutionary War. John Adams wanted Thomas Jefferson to write the Declaration of Independence. John Adams believed that Jefferson had the intellect, had the eloquence, and had proven himself as a formidable writer in the past, and wanted Jefferson to do this. John Adams knew, however, that Jefferson owned slaves, and as history will reveal, that when Jefferson died, Jefferson did not free his slaves. George Washington, the first president of the United States, would free his slaves upon his death, but Jefferson would not. The reason I draw this out about Adams and Jefferson is when we read a text, it is very difficult to separate the text from the writer. It might be a little easier with Antigone and then with Macbeth, because we probably don't know a whole lot about Sophocles. We probably know more about Shakespeare, but much has been in the news, as it should be if you're studying in America about the different American presidents or American history. And so what can happen sometimes is Jefferson's owning of slaves can be brought up to the forefront, and that's all that's ever considered. And there's another scar on his character, as Thomas Jefferson was also bad with money. He spent money all the time and was notorious for buying things that he didn't need. Jefferson was also a genius. And what I want to encourage you to do is, it's undeniable that he owned slaves. I would not deny that. And it's undefendable. I'm not defending that. And slavery will continue in the United States while the Declaration is being written, and 4 years after, even all the way into MLK's day. Slavery is not happening, but there's still segregation and some other unethical things that are happening. But it's important to know that John Adams never supported it, and there were others who signed the Declaration who wanted slavery to be eradicated. And they were unable to get it cleared up, and it will be something that, even though we will be fighting for our freedom as a nation from Great Britain, the freedom that we do not give to the Africans in our country is a blight on our nation's history, and it will continue to be a problem, and we'll read about it, especially in Jefferson's Gettysburg Address and in his second inaugural address. At the same time, we are a country still that has made room in our failings. We have still made room and made great headway and have made it possible for freedom and other things to take place. And there are other countries who have led the fight on that. Great Britain, of all things, they would cease their slave trade and slavery before we would, even though they were the very ones that we were trying to secede from because of their oppressive treatment of us. So I bring that up because it is a valid criticism and it's one weighing, but I encourage you not to let that get in the way of the truth of this text. If we allow ourselves to do that, then we have to ignore the arguments that Lincoln makes, and we have to ignore the arguments that MLK makes, and we'll get to those later. So what I want to say about the Declaration of Independence now is, first and foremost, it is a breakup letter. All of us have been through breakups, whether we've been the one saying it's over, or we've been the one who someone's had to come to and say it's over, whether that means romantic relationships come to an end, whether we've lost our position on a team, whether we've lost our job, whether we've had to leave a job and go somewhere else. Breakups happen all the time. And when you look at that opening paragraph, it works as laying out the topic for this letter. This is a breakup letter, and it's Jefferson saying there comes a time in the history of human beings engaging together that two groups need to separate. But when they separate, the one group who's breaking off needs to be considered not only separate, but equal. We are breaking free of the nation of Great Britain, but we are still a nation ourselves. So it's important to think that anytime we go through a breakup, whether we lose some aspect of our health, we have an injury, or we have some sickness or infection that's come upon us, or like I said, someone dumps us, or we go through divorce, or we quit a job, or we fire a job, or pretty soon you're going to be going through a breakup with college because you're going to graduate, right? And many of you have already gone through that breakup of high school not too long ago. The question of identity is always beneath that. When I no longer have the thing I've had by which I've identified myself, who am I? And sometimes there is a tactic that's used if we're separating from something we're accustomed to, and let's say the reasons are admirable. Sometimes a comeback from the other side will be, well, you're nothing without me, or you won't be as good as you have been without me. And we want to be mindful of that. And of course, Jefferson makes very clear, we're separating from Great Britain, but we are a nation as well. We will be equal to you, even though we are technically a younger nation and don't have an army like Great Britain has, and there's many things we don't have yet. We're a nation nonetheless. And after we move to that opening paragraph, we go into the second full paragraph, and there's a beautiful transition at the end of the first paragraph that says, with a decent respect to the opinions of mankind, requires that they who are doing the breaking up should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. So we know this letter is going to be about a breakup, a separation, and then the end of that paragraph sets up, here are the reasons, here's what's led to our need for the separation. And then Jefferson moves into one of the most famous lines, not only in the Declaration of Independence, I think it's one of the most beautiful lines in the English language. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed or gifted by their Creator with certain unalienable, inseparable rights, that among these rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Jefferson starts out not by saying what's the cause for why we want to separate from Britain. he doesn't get there yet. He first starts out by making a claim, a philosophical claim about the human being. The term self-evident has two meanings, and I've heard two different scholars from the same college have a slight disagreement on how Jefferson is using. So I'll let you know the two ways the term can be used, and you can decide for yourself how it's being used. The term self-evident can mean, first, it's obvious, right? We hold these truths to be obvious, that when you pay attention, the evidence is there. The other way self-evidence is used is like what we call an axiom or a proposition, right? This is a truth claim by which we are going to make our decisions. Now, when we sit in the side that says self-evident is used as an axiom, it's also being used in what is called a truth about which there is no original evidence. Let me explain. None of us were around when the universe began, and yet there are two, if not three, major axioms about the origins of the universe. One, we are here by accident. Natural selection, Big Bang, Darwinian evolution. That's how we got here, and that's what is sustaining us. And if we believe that, we might find evidence to support it, but it will also influence certain decisions we make. So when someone makes a claim that we have descended from apes, we have to understand where they're deriving that from. If they start with the axiom that we are here as a result of natural selection, we don't have to believe that, but we can at least understand how they've gone from one point to the next. Another axiom or self-evident truth that deals with the origins of the universe is that of intelligent design. And there are some variations with intelligent design, but clearly Jefferson is using the claim of the origin of the universe that deals with intelligent design. We have been made by a creator, and that creator has then gifted us. Now again, you can believe in intelligent design, you can believe in a creator, which I do, but I was not there at the beginning of the universe. I can find evidence to support that claim, but fundamentally I have to accept that claim, and then that will help me understand why I make certain decisions, or we can understand why people make certain decisions. Back to the text, once we get what Jefferson is doing with this self-evident truth claim about the human being, and his claim is that we are created and that the creator has gifted us rights that we cannot be separated from. Our identity, our humanity is wrapped up with at least three rights: the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now again, you can disagree with Jefferson's claim, but to see where he's going and to be able to track his logic and see how he gets to these points, we have to first understand that original claim. Now, the three things, the three rights. I'm only going to talk briefly about the pursuit of happiness. Happiness, Jefferson is using, is not whatever makes us feel good. He is talking about wisdom. The right to pursue wisdom, the right to pursue that which is good. And now we can go all the way back to Antigone, because the chorus comes on at the end of the play and says, reason, wisdom is the way to happiness. And then we'll look at the play Macbeth, where Lady Macduff says, what is wisdom? Wisdom is when the father does what is natural and takes care of his wife and his babes. And conversely, when the wife takes care of the husband and the babes, especially defending the little ones when they're in their nest and the owl is coming, just like the little wren does. Lady Macduff says that's wisdom. That's love. And so now we push into here, and Jefferson is saying that when we are conceived, when we are born, all humans have three rights. This is where we are equal. We're not equal in height. We're not equal in skill. We're not equal in looks or economic status or opportunities necessarily, but we all have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, or to pursue that which is good. Then Jefferson moves on to say that to secure these rights, governments are instituted. So now we know if this is true about the human being, now we understand Jefferson's argument for the purpose of government. The government is supposed to protect these rights. The government does not give us these rights. They protect it. And he'll go on to say that when a government fails to protect those rights, when they encroach and oppress those rights, the people have the authority and the obligation to reform the government so that they can secure those three inalienable rights. And then from there, Jefferson goes on to say the current government, he's talking about the monarchy, the King of England, the current government has put us under a long train, like a caravan, a long train of abuses and usurpations. And usurpations is a fancy word that means line skipping. This is my place in line. You are taking my place. You are not asking. You're not getting my permission. You're not bartering. You're simply taking. We can go back now to Antigone, where Creon is usurping the authority of the gods. We can go back to Macbeth. Macbeth is usurping Malcolm's role as king, but Macbeth is also usurping the moral construction of reality. We should not kill someone who's good. And yet Macbeth will, and we'll watch how things will fall apart there, right? So notice that Jefferson starts off with, this is a letter about a breakup. Here's the reasons. First, you need to understand this about the human being. Next, you need to understand this about government. And because the current government is failing, in fact, it's failing to such a degree that the current king is a tyrant. And there, towards the end of that second paragraph, we get about halfway through this letter, there he drops the bomb about the King of England as a tyrant. Today, we can call our presidents a tyrant, and we'll probably get some backlash depending on where we are. At the time that Jefferson wrote these words, and Adams agreed with them, and all the founders signed them, that was an act of treason. They put their lives on the line with that statement. But not only do they make the claim that the King of England is a tyrant, then they move into just over the midway point into the third act of this text, they lay out, here's all the evidence to prove that the king is a tyrant. So the model of this letter is a model worth following in our own writing. Here's my topic. Now, of course, we set our thesis up, the thing that's arguable, much earlier. So if you were writing a paper following this model, you'd have to bring the thesis statement of the King of England is a tyrant, right? We'd bring that up earlier. Jefferson has pushed that back just a little bit, but he is still supplying evidence for his claim. He's not just making claims. He's providing evidence. This is one reason why in both of our papers we've written, I've expected you to make a claim, show where the text supports that claim, and then you can expound on that, make some sort of application if you need to, right? So after the list that Jefferson gives, then he'll do one more thing. He'll deal with counter arguments. The first counter argument is, you're making all these complaints about the king, but have you tried to talk to the king? Yes, we've tried, and it's gone us nowhere. Okay, you've tried to talk to the king, and that's not gone anywhere. Have you tried to talk to the king's people? And Jefferson will say, yes, we've even tried to talk to the king's people, and that got us nowhere either. This is a very important point in the argument or in the letter that Jefferson has written. You always need to consider a counter argument to your primary argument. And if not a counter argument to your primary argument, some counter argument to whatever points you are bringing up, right? And you probably want to bring up the strongest arguments that you have to contend with, because when we fight with that which is strongest, it makes us stronger, it makes us better thinkers. So after Jefferson deals with the counter arguments, let's retrace our steps. This is a breakup letter. We'll tell you why. First, here's what you need to understand about the human being. Once you understand that, you'll understand the purpose of government. And then you'll understand that the current King of England is not living up to his job of government. He's a tyrant. And we're not just going to say he's a tyrant. Here's all the list of evidence to prove that he's a tyrant. And now we're going to deal with all the counter arguments. And then once he's dealt with the counter arguments, he'll take us into the seventh step, that third act, that final drive home, where he restates the entire letter just slightly differently. And he will say, because this is the case that the King of England is a tyrant, we, the United States of America, are free. We are saying that we are free, and we are willing to go to war to earn that freedom. And if you'll notice the very last line of the text, the writer Jefferson says, and the founders, they all sign and agree, that in order to make sure that we are willing to go the last full measure to secure our freedom, we pledge, we vow our lives, our fortunes, our sacred honor. And if you'll notice, these last three items are a mirror image of the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. We pledge our lives. Fortunes is related to liberty, even though with money can come certain obligations and restrictions. I like what J.K. Rowling says is that poverty hurts. And certainly with certain financial stability, even if we're not extremely wealthy, that does provide a level of liberty for us. And then just as we have the right for the pursuit of happiness, the pursuit of that which is good, Jefferson says, we pledge our sacred, our holy honor. And honor is something you almost cannot put a price on. So that is a brief discussion on the Declaration of Independence. This is an excellent model, an outline, a format for you to follow when you start working on that final paper for this class. And I look forward to seeing what you've posted about the Declaration of Independence since you've read it. I took a week off with spring break, just like the rest of you, and I will be getting back to reading those discussion forums and responding to those. Thank you very much.